Spinning records, got the lights down low. Souldisco, where the groovy people go. Hit play, let the music flow. Old school beats with a modern glow.
Hello everybody and a very warm welcome back to the latest episode of Hidden Jewels of Soul and Disco. I do hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. In this week's episode I will dive into the story of Leo's Sunship, the short-lived soul group behind the rare groove classic Give Me the Sunshine and the cult album We Need Each Other. Imagine a small club in London in the mid-1980s. The room is hot, the dance floor is packed, and the DJ pulls out a mysterious LP with a slightly psychedelic cover. The label says, Leo's Sunship, we need each other. The needle drops and a slow, rolling groove fades in. A lazy bass line, warm electric piano chords, soft percussion, and silky harmonies. The track is Give Me the Sunshine. And over the years, it becomes one of the defining rare groove records. The kind of tune DJs and collectors will hunt for decades. Behind that album is a very short, very intense story of an American soul group that only ever finished 4 songs, but still managed to become legendary. Leo's Sunship was a soul and R&B vocal trio formed in 1977 by Kenny Stover, Johnny Seaman, and Alvin Few. All 3 were born under the astrological sign of Leo, which is where the name comes from, Leo's Sunship. The little ship sailing under the Leo sun. Kenny Stover's background explains a lot about the quality of the music. Born in Georgia and raised in Cleveland, he moved to Detroit with his brother Algie to work with their cousin Fawe Fuqua. I'm pretty sure many who are watching this video and know my channel know exactly who Fawe Fuqua was. And they worked on his Tri-Fill label. Both brothers were eventually hired as staff writers for Motown's publishing arm, Joe Beat Music. Kenny sang background vocals on Marvin Gaye's classic album What's Going On and contributed to the track Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler. He also later wrote the first politically focused draft of Let's Get It On before it was reshaped into the sensational hit everybody of us knows. In Los Angeles, he met Johnny Seaman, a singer from Atlanta who had been in groups like the Wallace Brothers and the Naturals before moving west. Simone became a backing vocalist for Marvin Gaye, toured with him, and also spent time on the road with Stevie Wonder. Compared with those two, relatively little is documented about Alvin, but sources constantly list him as a full member of the group. Singer, producer, and the man behind the album's concept. He's also credited on We Need Each Other, especially for the concept of the album. Musically, Leo's Sunship sits in a sweet spot where smooth 70s soul, jazz funk, and early disco meet. Reviewers describe the sound as smooth, jazzy, and disco funk inflected, with comparisons to lush summery arrangements of Roy Ayers or Leon Ware. You hear a lot of Fender Rhodes keys, mellow string lines, easygoing but precise drumming, and multi-part vocals that float on top rather than shouting for attention. It's sophisticated but relaxed. Music that feels like sunshine on a late afternoon. In 1977, the trio began recording material for their debut album. The sessions were done in the United States, and later reissues credits that accessed sound in Atlanta, where the album was recorded. The band themselves handled production and arrangements. Johnny Simone and Kenny Stover are credited as producers and arrangers, and Alvin is listed as an executive producer and overall concept man. They worked with a full studio band, rhythm section, keyboards, strings, and horns, the typical luxurious late 70s soul setup. They planned a proper album, but in the end, like I mentioned earlier, only 4 songs were fully completed. The songs were Give Me the Sunshine, I'm Back for More, Get Down People, and Madam Butterfly. Each of these songs were then mirrored with an instrumental or mini-tro version to create a full LP. The finished record, We Need Each Other, was released in the United States in 1978 on Lions Records Co. with the catalog number L1000, running just over 40 minutes in total. I did mention a mini-tro version, and you are asking yourself, what is a mini-tro version? I've never heard of that. Well, a mini-tro version on We Need Each Other is an alternate mix of a song, built from the instrumental backing, often rearranged for DJ use, and not a separate new composition and not just a short intro. On the album, the tracks labeled mini-tro are the instrumental and alternate mix of the 4 main songs. They are the extra versions Lion Records used to turn 4 finished tunes onto a full album. So you get a complete album. On Give Me the Sunshine, the 12-inch, Discogs explains it very clearly. The B-side mini-tro is the LP instrumental with the album vocals laid over as an alternative mix. So it's a kind of reworked version made from the same building blocks as the album. So mini-tro with Leon Sunshine, well, that they created their own name for alternate semi-instrumental mixes of the same songs, like a hybrid between instrumental, intro, outro, and a DJ-friendly version. It's not an industry standard term like radio edit or dub mix. It's basically a custom label for those extra mixes on We Need Each Other and the related singles. And before we talk further about the album, I want to show you the album in all of its 70s glory. Here it is, as described. We have the sun, we have the Sunship, and let me show you the back of the cover. For me, always, this album has been a mystery. I adored the songs. I always wanted to know why only 4 songs, why we get these versions on the album before I dug deeper into the story. It took me over a decade to find an original copy of this album. And yes, because you're always asking, it's not cheap. I found it this year on the Mega Record Fair in Den Bosch, and it wasn't cheap at all. But I couldn't believe that I finally saw that record. I could have gone the easy way and get it online. I personally prefer to find my records. For me, it's the hunt and finding the records. Yes, today you can now click on an item and order it, and 2 days later it will be in your mailbox. But for me, it's always the hunt. And I was so over the moon when I finally found this copy. The cover is rough, but the record is in great shape. And like I said, it's not a cheap one. And if you say, okay, I might only want the hits, well, yeah, there are possibilities, and I want to get deeper into the label, Expansion label, later on. But Expansion released a 12-inch single of Leo Sunship, Give Me the Sunshine, and I'm Back for More as a limited edition on yellow vinyl. You still find it on the secondary market, but there are also reissues out there. And for those who say, I'm not into records, I only like the music, and it doesn't matter to me if it's on a cassette, a CD, if it's streaming. You'll find this album on Spotify, on YouTube. It's available everywhere. But if you're looking for a first pressing, like I said, it wasn't cheap. And Yeah, I'm spinning it all the time. It's an absolutely great album, even if the group only completed 4 songs, and if the other material has been tweaked around to make a complete album, it's still a great album and deserves every spotlight it can get. But let's get back to the album again, to the songwriting. The songwriting is clearly divided. So John Simone wrote Give Me the Sunshine and Get Down People. Kenny Stover wrote I'm Back for More, and Madam Butterfly was co-written with Simon and Stover. And later on it was published through Motown Connected publishers. We just also discussed that label, Jubeat Music and Stone Diamond. On the original LP, 8 tracks are split into vocal and instrumental sides. Side A opens with 3 vocal cuts: Give Me the Sunshine, I'm Back for More, and Get Down People. And it closes with the first mainly instrumental mini-tro version of Madam Butterfly. Side B flips that idea. It starts with the full vocal version of Madam Butterfly and then runs through the alternate instrumental versions of the other 3 songs. It's an unusual layout that makes the record almost feel like a set of mirrored reflections. 4 songs, 4 shadows. Give Me the Sunshine is the opener and the most famous track. The vocal version stretches over 6 minutes. It doesn't really build in a dramatic way, it just settles into a deep hypnotic groove. Simon's chord changes and the area arrangements give the track a dreamy, almost weightless quality. Many later notes and reviewers call it an iconic rare groove. Exactly the kind of tune that London DJs in the 1980s and 1990s would spin at the peak of a summer night. The mini-tro version of the second half of the album strips the vocals back and lets the rhythm sections and key shines. I'm Back for More is the second pillar of the record. Written by Kenny Stover, it's slightly faster than Sunshine and it feels like a classic grown-up soul tune. Mid-tempo, romantic but understated. With a chorus that sticks in your head after one listen. That's absolutely for sure. The strengths of that song became obvious very quickly. It was covered by Marlena Shaw, Tavares, and Al Johnson and Gene Khan around 1978 till 1980, with Johnson Khan's version were becoming a modern soul favorite in own right. And yeah, it's a fan favorite from Gene Khan, and she always or very often performs it when she's playing it live. On We Need Each Other, the mini-tro take turns into a more groove-oriented piece that DJs can blend in smoothly into sets. Get Down People shows Leo's Sunship at their funkiest, with its quicker tempo, choppy guitar, and driving drums. It's the track that gets closest to the straightforward disco funk. Yet, the band style keeps its soft-edged jazzy character. It's more about glide than aggression. The instrumental version on side B pushes the groove into the foreground and could easily pass as a lost club cut from a Roy Ayers style session. Madam Butterfly is the emotional high point of the album. There are 2 versions, the shorter mini-tro and the full vocal performance. Both use strings and truthful melodic development to create a kind of mini soul opera, referring Puccino's tragic story in the title and mood. Knowing that Simone and Stover co-wrote it and it's tied into Moto's publicity network, adds an extra layer of connection between the small independent album and the bigger world of the 1970s soul. All of this would still just be nice little footnote in soul history if the story stopped here. But it doesn't. Because in the middle of the recording process, tragedy hit. Johnny Simone fell seriously ill with cancer while they were working on the album. He never recovered and died in his early 30s after only those 4 songs had been completed. Kenny Stover was devastated. As the main surviving creative force, he initially blocked the release of the recordings. The idea of putting out a cheerful summary album without Simon didn't sit right with him. Instead, he moved on to other work, including a short stint in the Motown group Finished Touch in 1978. For a while, it looked like if Leo Sunship would remain a lost project. Eventually, through Leon Records decided to issue what they had, they took the 4 finished tracks, added the instrumental and mini-tro versions, and released We Need Each Other as an official LP in 1978. The cover, which you can still see on the reissues today, has a slightly psychedelic, almost 60s style feel. Bold colors, stylish lettering, not quite what you expect from a 1978 soul record, which only adds to the album mystique. Commercially, the LP made barely a ripple. It was privately pressed in relatively small numbers and distributed on a modest scale. Over time, however, copies started to circulate among DJs and collectors. Diggers communicated later described Leo Sunship as a soulful, jazzy, disco, superfunk group, whose album sounds like a blend of mid-70s smooth-out soul and groovy jazz funk. That kind of praise combined with the tragic backstory and the unusual structure of the record turned We Need Each Other into an underground classic. Give Me the Sunshine in particular developed a life of its own in the UK's rare groove and jazz funk scene during the 1980s. It became a staple. A 12-inch single of the track was released in Britain around that time, listing the style as jazz funk, and the song appeared regularly on club sets and specialty radio shows. For many dancers and listeners, that was the first and sometimes only connection to the name Leo Sunship. From the mid-1990s onwards, the British label Expansion Records took over the job of keeping the music in print. They reissued We Need Each Other on CD and vinyl and also put out standalone 12 and 7-inch singles of Give Me the Sunshine and I'm Back for More, like the one I've shown you. Also, the album We Need Each Other as an original copy is more often seen in the UK than elsewhere. In the 2000s and 2010s, they released further editions, including limited 180-gram yellow vinyl pressing that even prints the BPM chart on the back, underscoring the album's status as both a listening experience and a DJ tool. Some later pressings, including digital versions, edited tracks, and shorter radio edits of Give Me the Sunshine. Today, you can find We Need Each Other easily on streaming platforms, where it's usually tagged as a classic soul and rare groove. Original 1978 pressings on Lion's L1000, however, like I mentioned earlier, they remain a collector's item that command high prices, and I can tell you that from experiences. Modern reissues keep the music in circulation so new listeners can discover it without paying the collector's level money. Taken as a whole, the album is special for several reasons. First, there's the focus. With only 4 actual songs, there's no filter. Every composition is strong, and the instrumental mini-tro versions feel like genuine reinterpretations rather than padding. Second, there's the backstory, a project built by experienced Motown-connected musicians, cut short by the early death of its main writer and vocalist. And third, there's the sound itself, a perfect slice of the late 70s smooth soul and jazz funk, warm and summery, yet touched by melancholy. Only you know what happened. When you drop the needle on We Need Each Other today, you're not just hearing a present old record, you're hearing 3 seasoned singers, Kenny Stove, Johnny Simon, and Alvin Few, stepping out of the background to make something truly their own. You're hearing the optimism of Give Me the Sunshine, the romantic confidence of I'm Back for More, the dance floor push of Get Down People, and the drummer of Madame Butterfly. All framed by musicianship that's both laid back and precise. Leo's Sunship were only active for a brief moment around 1977 to 1978, and they left behind just 4 songs and their alternate versions. But that tiny catalog has been enough to secure them a permanent place in soul history. Every time a DJ cues off Give Me the Sunshine in a club or listener hits play on the album, that small Sunship sails across the sky one more time. I highly recommend, if you haven't heard of that album, please check it out. Like I said before, you don't need to go for the original pressing, which fetches up easily a couple of €100 or dollars. There are plenty of reissues out there, good sounding reissues. And if you prefer a digital streaming, it's also available up there. And if you like that episode, I also highly suggest that you check out the playlist appearing here, and I catch you on the next one.